Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Bird and this is my assignment. It's a do-it-yourself light box. I've done this project before and every time I've done it, it's been really enjoyable. Throughout this presentation, I'll show you the basics of how to build your own. The first thing you'll need are tools. Depending on what materials you decide to go with, the tools may vary. On my light box, I use wire cutters, a screwdriver, a socket wrench, and needle nose pliers, as well as a saw and Dremel to cut the design and to size up materials. On the other side of the project are your materials. I use plexiglass, sheet metal, aluminum frame, angle mounts, screws and nuts, and lastly I used a LED light source from a busted car headlight and a Nintendo DS charger for power. Always keep in mind that having and cutting the correct measurements are the hardest task in building projects such as this. One error in a cut could decide whether your project will look like junk or not. I started with my design. I chose a tree design that I hand drew onto the metal before using a Dremel to cut the design out. When choosing materials, always think of how you want it to look and feel. I went with steel because brass didn't quite work with the rest of my materials. Next, I started work on the frame, so I gathered my angle mounts and marked the aluminum frame for screw holes prior to drilling. If you decide to use wood on your frame, this aspect of the build will be much easier. Prior to drilling the holes in the aluminum frames, you should always be certain that the drill bit matches the size of your screws. Drill too small and you'll have to drill again, and if you drill too big, you're likely to have to purchase more materials. Once you have the correct holes marked and drilled, don't forget to cut a notch on the top rail of the frame in the center so you can hang it on the wall as well. You can start putting the frame together at this point. I started with the top and side. Make sure when putting the frame together that you aren't putting the top and bottom together rather than a top and a side. Otherwise, you'll have to break it down again, unless, of course, your frame is square rather than rectangle like mine is. After getting the first two sides together, you can add the bottom part of the frame. When 3/4 of the frame are assembled, you can slide on your back plate. I pre-drilled my back plate to mount my LED light source. Most likely, your light sources aren't shaped like mine and possibly can be adhered rather than screwed on, and so these holes may or may not apply to you. Next, you can work on your lighting. I'm using an LED light source. LED is a great source for light. They're small, use low amounts of power, and they don't put out any heat and last forever. I paired up my LED lighting with a power source I had laying around from a Nintendo DS that has long since been gotten rid of. I cut I cut off the end of the cable and split the wires in it for power and ground. I drilled a hole in the bottom of the frame big enough to thread the power cord through perfectly. I then put a single knot in the cord after putting the cord through so it couldn't slide out during the wiring process or later on by kids or when moving. I also attached wire connectors to both power and ground cables for easy installation of the light source. I then inserted the power and ground from the light source and crimped the wire connectors tightly with pliers in order to firmly hold the wires together. I wanted to add a little bit extra to my light box, and so I printed out a design of my own and cut it to fit the box along with a piece of clear acetate to serve as a protective layer for the image. I then sandwiched the printed design and the acetate between the plexiglass that I opted to sand to give it a frosted look in order for the light to be distributed, more evenly as as well as the front plate with my tree design cut out of it. Once you're happy with the alignment and how the front looks, and you've tested to make sure that your light source works and has power, as well as puts out enough light, you can slide your front panel layers into your light box and attach the final portion of the frame. Now comes the hardest part, finding a place to hang it. Once you've found a place, put a nail in the wall and hang it up. Hopefully a spot near a power outlet, otherwise you might have to settle for a second choice, much like I did next to my closet. When it gets dark, you and your family can now enjoy your very own light box. And you did it yourself, which makes the project just that much better. I appreciate your time and attention, and thank you for watching this presentation. I can only hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I did. Thank you. Now comes the hardest part, finding a place to hang it. Once you've found a place, put a nail in the wall and hang it up. Hopefully a spot near a power outlet, otherwise you might have to settle for a second choice, much like I did next to my closet. When it gets dark, you and your family can now enjoy your very own light box. And you did it yourself, which makes the project just that much better. I appreciate your time and attention, and thank you for watching this presentation. I can only hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I did. Thank you.